Welcome to the Wealth Matters podcast, where investors come together to better understand how to build passive cash flow and create generational wealth without all the confusing mumbo-jumbo. Here's your host and co-author of Amazon #1 bestseller, Alpesh Pamar.
Welcome to Wealth Matters podcast. I am going to talk to Mr. Van Sturgeon today. I was just talking to him before the podcast. It's pretty interesting. He's spending his time between 3 different places, and he's in Canada, Toronto. But of course, during the winter time, he tries to move to some of the, hotter places in US. He's a real estate investor and contractor, and he owns a number of different businesses in real estate itself, which are general contractor to restoration company, etc. So this would be a pretty interesting episode because everyone has been through some issues or some kind of pain points with general contractors, right? Been through the same journey as well. So I am looking forward to this episode. So welcome, Van.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Alpesh. And it's a pleasure being here. And this is my passion, is talking about real estate, but in particular about how to go about planning and managing your own renovation, where you take control over your whole the project and the course of action that carry things that are carried out. You control, and you're able to not have issues with identifying or dealing with bad contractors and tradespeople, and you're able to raise the value of your particular property. So I enjoy being able to talk with you today.
That's awesome. Tell us something interesting or funny about yourself.
Even though I look relatively young, if you turn really the camera focus on, you'll see I'm an older gentleman that is a product of the 1960s, late 1960s. And I grew up in Chicago during that period of time with the bell bottoms and the funny hairdos. And living over there, my parents were immigrants to the country. And we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my brother and my parents, and the 4 of us lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And what ultimately happened was my parents wanted to save money to buy their dream home. And they discovered that they're able to buy the building that they're actually living in, that we're renting from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting development. So instead of becoming, owning their dream home, they became landlords. And that's the background or environment that I grew up in, was, property management and dealing with tenant issues and cleaning toilets and stuff like that.
Oh, but that's awesome. This is how you should get started, right? Learning about real estate when you are young. That's great.
It wasn't something that was planned out to be that immersed in it. It was because, just out of necessity, we went through a period of time in the late 70s that were pretty miserable in the country. We had high interest rates,
right.
18-20%. Inflation rate was crazy. The unemployment rate was high. It was a miserable time. And that was right around the period of time when my parents had bought the building, and it was fully occupied when they purchased it. And then all of a sudden, during that period of time, the neighborhood started to turn as good people started to leave. Then the gangs and all that kind of stuff moved in. So we ended up we were facing 40, 50, 60% vacancy at one point during a period of time. And as a necessity, as a family, we had to do everything ourselves. So literally fixing a roof, ripping carpet out, or resurfacing hardwood floor, whatever required to save money and not involve any people and do it ourselves, we would do that. So that's the background I came from. And eventually I went off to university, and I graduated, and I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I could have been. I made a decision that I wanted to stick to what I grew up in and what I loved, which is real estate. So that's where I've been ever since.
So how and when did you start investing in real estate yourself?
I got started when I opened up my business. I was a general contractor, and I was trying to develop a clientele. I would go all around Chicago and trying to quote work, create relationships, and slowly started to build my business. And as that continued on, I kept running into the same people, which were just real estate investors that would purchase a property, would renovate it, would sell it, or they would purchase a property, it would turn it into a rental. And I kept seeing this going on. And I thought to myself one day, like, why don't I try it myself? So I went out and I purchased this small little bungalow that was all beat up. I paid $43,000 for it in Chicago. I spent $18,000, $19,000 in renovating it. And then in about 4 months' time, I was able to sell it, and I sold it for $95,000, $97,000. So in a matter of 4 months or so, I made around $30,000 in profit, which, to give you perspective, in 1991 it was like the average salary back then was like $20,000, $30,000.
That's crazy in 1991. That's with the inflation and everything, I think that would be worth, and I may be wrong, but at least 330 grand, if not
That's right.
more.
Yes, yes. It definitely things have changed, over the course of the 30 years that I've been involved in. The internet and access of information definitely
Yes.
is a significant game changer, which is good in some respects, but is also bad because there's a lot of misinformation out there on cyberspace or internet. You don't remember, you're too young, Alpesh, to remember the good old days of going to the real estate agent. We would go every Thursday. I would go. That's when the new listings would come out.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Back in the day,
I don't have any clue.
So I'll tell you what happened. So it used to be, there was no internet back then. It used to come in a big, thick book, like a phone book. All the listings would be inside that book. And so you had to have a relationship with a real estate agent in order to have access to the listings. And so I would, you go there on a Thursday, like other real estate investors, and wait for that book to be published and then grab it. And you would start rifling through it to see what was up for sale and try to understand, what was happening in the marketplace. And then over a period of time now, it's, we got Zillow, we got MLS, we got everything that's on.
So what was your very first rehab project and how did it go?
Well, the first rehab project, as I mentioned, was the one
that was the one. Oh, that's awesome.
That was the first one that I had as a real estate investor.
And what did you learn from that first project?
Well, ultimately that it cultivated or it fanned the flames of real estate that were already ignited in me, that I saw that there's tremendous opportunity in doing that. And as a result, as I was growing my business, my general contracting business, I was also dabbling more and more in real estate investing. So I was picking up properties, I would renovate them, I would sell them. And both sides started to grow for a period of time. They started to grow. And I got to the point where I was burning the candle at both ends. It was being difficult to manage both because of the time constraints. Also, I came from an area of a mindset that I had to do everything myself because of the background that I grew up in. I wanted to micromanage everything. It had to be perfect. I had to do everything myself because I wanted to save as much money as possible. And I ultimately ended up sleeping at job sites, trying to get things done. And I remember being married at the time. I didn't even go on a honeymoon because I was absorbed with my business and growing it and trying to do everything I could to be successful, and got to the point where I almost had a nervous breakdown because it was just too much for me to handle. And I had to reach out to people, and one particular individual that helped me through the process of figuring out what I was doing wrong and what I was doing right. But he was a real estate investor, was very successful. He coached me. He mentored me through the early stages of my real estate investment career. And I had to pay him money to teach me.
Of course.
But it was the best investment I'd ever made. And there's a reason why I am where I am today is because of that, the early investment that I made, not in a property or in a widget, but I made it in myself. And that's where I saw the best investment happens when you invest in yourself. And that's why I strongly encourage people, if you ever want to be successful in anything, to make that investment in yourself and don't worry about the property. The property will take care of itself. You'll find a property, but it's so much easier to make the investment in yourself, not only in the time necessary to learn, but also making the investment in people that can guide you from one place to the place that you want to be. One of the examples that I use is if you want to learn how to play the piano, you can sit there and pound away on those keys. Eventually, after 6 months and years, you might figure out how to play a song, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Versus hiring a music teacher is going to cost you money, but in a very short period of time, you're going to be able to learn and keep you from making the same mistakes over and over again. And in our business, if you make a mistake, it can be devastating. I've seen over my 30 years, a lot of new investors coming into the marketplace and they make the wrong purchase, they make the wrong renovation, and it's devastating financially. It's a huge blow that they can't overcome.
Can you take us through the steps to plan the rehab project?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I strongly encourage people, there's a system that I put together over the course of the last 30 years that I kept using and it's become second nature to me. And one of the first things that I recommend to people to do is really identify what it is that you're looking to accomplish with this investment property. So if it is a rental property, great. What is it that you're looking to rent it out for? If it's a flip, how much are you looking to make profit from it? And really actually think about it and write it down, because that goal is incredibly important, because everything associated with your planning and management of your renovation is going to flow through that goal.
So basically reverse engineer it, right? First find the number and then go back.
That's correct. Absolutely. And then the next step would be for you to validate that goal, which means you have to go on the marketplace and see so for example, if you're looking to make $1,800 in rent from your rental property, then you need to go out there in the marketplace, the immediate marketplace, and discover what it is out there that similar properties that have that rent at $1,800, what is it that they have that you can implement in your property? Oftentimes people just new real estate investors in particular, new real estate investors just happen to, they just sort of wing it and they don't actually do their due diligence and, identifying the things that you need to do in a renovation that produces the greatest amount of ROI. It's a business at the end of the day. And every dollar that I can save in my pocket is money that's in my, it contributes to the bottom line, to the profit. So it's easy to spend money, and especially in a renovation. You can, there's $100 toilets, and there's $1,000 toilets.
Yeah, you can either put carpet to LVP to, wood, right? So you can go all over.
That's right. And then ultimately, you got to know that if, let's say, for a house flip, you can't put in laminate floor, you might have to put real hardwood floor because in order for you to get the dollars that you're looking for, but you got to do the research in order to be able to get to that point. And then once you got that, then you move on to establishing an actual budget. And that's one of the things that a lot of people, new real estate investors are confused. They're not sure where to go, how to do that. Money is out there. It's readily available, be in the form of a line of credit. Obviously, cash is number one, but then there's also lines of credit, loans that you can pull out of your financial institution. There's also, government programs that are available sometimes when you're upgrading certain things in your investment property that
energy credits,
get things paid off.
Energy credits to private money lender, to hard money lender, right?
That's right. There's hard money lenders also, which you might have to pay more of an interest rate, but it's a lot quicker access to money and you only need it for a short period of time. Another one is, which often is overlooked, is actually partner up with another real estate investor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's guys out there who have money, who don't have the deal. If you've got the deal and you need the money, there's opportunities in that regard to be able to do that. Yeah. And one of the things I encourage new real estate investors to do is to join their local real estate investment associations, to join their local meetup groups where there's lots of information floating around. Facebook groups, there's lots of that floating around as well, of actual information that you'd be able to tap into to help you in that process of finding money and the resources that you would need to be able to carry a renovation forward successfully. But I strongly encourage people, if you're a new real estate investor that's really wants to be successful at this and really wants to put their heart and passion into it, that you need to learn how to plan and manage your own renovation, your own rehab project, because not only is it add dollars to your bottom line, but you keep control of the whole process. You're able to eliminate bad contractors and tradespeople, and you're actually literally are able to increase the value of the property by virtue of because of your passion, because of your interest, because it's your property. It's not a general contractor's property. They're one stage removed from the process. And I'm speaking as a general contractor myself. And so I strongly encourage people to do that, especially now, because you need to have that fundamental skill set, because if you do come across a deal, you better know what you're talking about. You don't have opportunities to spend thinking about pulling the trigger, calling your contractor friend to take a look at a property or calling a house inspector to come look at it. You got to make a decision quickly. If you don't have that skill set to understand like what the property needs and put a dollar value to it, you're behind the 8 ball. It's very difficult for you to be able to acquire a property. If you don't know how to do a plan and manage your own renovation, actually put a dollar value on that cost.
So let me ask you this. What is your process to manage the rehab project?
The most important aspect of it is the planning side, touched on. And ultimately, you should drive the process toward creating a document called a scope of work. There's a lot of folks out there who don't know what that is, especially on the residential side. I find probably 95% of the projects, residential projects that are being carried out as we speak, don't have a piece of paper that identifies and specifies the things that are supposed to be done to the property. A lot of folks don't understand that there are 20 different types of paints. There's semi-gloss. There's latex, there's acrylic, there's so many different types. And that if you don't put that stuff together, do you expect a general contractor? Do you expect a tradesperson to actually reach into your head to pull out what it is that you're looking to accomplish in this project? So in the scope of work is actual document that you put together, eliminates any confusion that you might have associated with what you want to accomplish with the property and also with the tradespeople and the contractors that you get involved in your project. And so that's one of the things that is fundamental. Like in my particular situation, I've standardized my renovations on my rental properties. So I got over 1,000 units all across, 4 different states, but each of them has their own specifications associated with the areas that the properties are located. It just spits out the same product. But I do actually have a physical document that whenever I want to bring a new electrician, a plumber into the picture, they have a document there that refers them exactly what it is I'm looking to accomplish, the standardized approach that I'm looking to accomplish in all of my rental properties. And folks, you got to have that, because if you don't, how can you compare apples with apples when you receive quotes, right?
Right. That's very important. And once the project has started, do you keep an eye on the project? How do you stay connected, and how do you manage the overall project?
Well, by virtue of actually having a scope of work, it's funny how you have so many contractors and tradespeople who want to do business with you in comparison to not having that document. Because I, as a successful contractor, especially if I'm busy, if I get a phone call from somebody who wants to have some type of renovation and they don't have their information in order, they don't have their ducks in order, they don't know what they want, I don't waste my time with those people. And I don't quote because I'm too busy. And by virtue of you having this document together, it's amazing how many good qualified contractors and tradespeople you attract to your project, because you're dealing with a professional, and good, decent professionals who understand the name of the game is turnover quickly. You go in, get your job done, get paid, move on to the next project. Instead of sitting there meandering over and over, waiting for somebody to make a decision. Contractors and tradespeople want to go deal with professional people that just bang. You just want to get your job done, get paid, and move on to the next project. So by virtue of having a scope of work and you're showing it to them, and it shows exactly what it is that you're looking to accomplish in your project, that attracts the best and the most efficient people that you ultimately want to do business with. You don't, it eliminates the garbage. Because nowadays, everybody seems to be a contractor. All you got to do is run over to your local home improvement center, buy a hammer, and all of a sudden I'm a contractor. I'm a tradesperson. I'm a wallpaper guy. I'm a painter. And if you just give the scope of work to a document to these types of people, trust me, it scares them away. They don't want to talk to you anymore, because they see that you know something more than the other dodos that are out there. And they don't want, because those types of guys usually want to take advantage of you. And we want people who are business people. We want professional people. And by having that document, that's what it attracts. So once I have that document, I attract very good people. Obviously, I'm going to get 3 or 4. The whole idea is to be able to plan and manage your own renovation, to eliminate the general contractor and the amount of money associated with that general contract charges. So as an example, if you came to me and your project, and I charge you $50,000 for that renovation, or I gave you a quote of $50,000, my cost on it is $30,000 to $35,000. I have to make $15,000 or more on that project for me to, over the course of the 2-3 months, I'm going to be involved with that project. I can't make less than that. If people are there's some illusions that me, the general contractors, are going to make $5,000 on being there for 2-3 months, that's not reality. So in order to be able to, for you as a real estate investor, to be able to keep that $15,000 in your pocket, that dramatically increase the value of your property, the amount of money you're going to make on that deal, and you seize control of your renovation. That's the reason why I'm a big proponent of people doing this stuff on their own, because of the control that's involved and that they have, and also the amount of money that they're able to save. So go back to the whole notion of the scope of work. You attract great people, and then you conversations with them and vetting them, making sure that they're the right people for the job. You are able to put a timeline together, a workflow chart where where each person slots in to get the work done. And there's certain clauses and there's certain things that you need to include that, to the length of this podcast, we can't get into, but.
No, that is you kind of alluded to this, but how do you separate out the bad contractors from good contractors?
Well,
what are some of the characteristics you would see?
Well, one of the things that I definitely would definitely see as I learned from over the 30 years that I'm doing this, that I like to deal with professionals, that when I provide them with a scope of work, they immediately understand the job and they provide a quote in a professional manner. Then after that, they give me a list of references that I go visit.
Okay.
Many times and I've also fall victim to this, that we want to save the most amount of money. Yeah. So we go on Craigslist, or we find, Jack's friend, neighbor's cousin who does painting. We're going to bring him on. And then we bring Jack's friend's cousin over to do the work. And he's very cheap. But what happens is Jack's friend's cousin, the painter, starts spraying the outside exterior of the house, and then spray mist ends up on my neighbor's car, which is actually one of my clients has happened to them.
Oh,
And so now
wow.
all of a sudden you have a situation where you've angered your next door neighbor. You've caused thousands of dollars worth of damage. The contractor, Joe's neighbor's cousin, whatever,
He's
he
not
takes off. He
he's not
disappears.
licensed. He's gonna
Not
disappear.
licensed. He just disappears. He runs away. You can't find him. You're never going to see him again. And guess what? Who holds the bag? Who's going to pay? So
Yep.
that's why I've learned my lesson many times. And again, it's very difficult temptation to overcome. But I've learned that it is best to deal with professionals. That's why in doing your due diligence, you will see who the real players are and who are not. We're talking about individuals that provide a list of references that you go visit. You talk to the principals that are involved. You look at the way they handle or they carry out their job site. These are the types of people that we want to get involved in, because this is a long game. This isn't a short game. And you want to create relationships with these people so that moving forward, you continually use the same people and you create systems and you create processes that you just like cookies. You just churn out the same cookies over and over again. And that's what successful real estate investors do, is you create a system like I have a system, and it's very successful. That's the reason why I am where I am today, because of the system I've been created. And I keep using the same system and the processes over and over again over the last 30 years.
That's awesome. So you mentioned about the painting and stuff. What are some of the biggest gotchas while planning and managing the rehab project?
There's so many. One of the things that I encourage people when you embark on doing this on your own, I'm not suggesting at all that you pick up a hammer and do any of the work yourself. All the time you're working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
And so you have individuals that, from the handyman to the painter, to the plaster, to the carpenter, everybody is got a sole purpose and involvement in their project, and they're doing the work. But one of the things that I find that a lot of people as new real estate investors get caught up in is that there's a lot of emotions that are involved, and you create relationships with people. And then contractors and tradespeople take advantage of that. And you always have to have and maintain that element of business. It's a business. We're not friends. We're not here to be friends.
Right.
We're here to be business. And so because if you create that friendly relationship, then all of a sudden you get taken advantage of. One of the things that I teach people all the time is you create right from the get-go, a payment schedule that you're able to, you have certain milestones that you hit, and that's when a contractor or a tradesperson gets paid. And we should always minimize the amount of money that we outlay when we start a relationship with somebody. Ultimately, we always want to be in a position where we are controlling the shots. And how can you control the shots if you've already have overpaid for something? I find time and time again.
All the time.
Contractors and tradespeople, they'll say, I want 30% upfront. I want 50% upfront. Oh, I don't have enough money at the end of the week. Can you please give me a couple of $1,000 so I can pay my employees? I've heard it all. And when you do stuff like that, all of a sudden, these contractors and these tradespeople are working other job sites, not only yours.
Of course.
And so what they're going to do is they grab enough, if they got enough money that there's a cushion with your particular project, they're going to go somewhere else, start something else, or they're going to go somewhere where there isn't that cushion. And so by virtue of you being able to control your destiny, control your project, is it how much you outlay, how much you pay. So you have a very frank conversation with these people. You establish milestones, and at that milestone, you get paid. And if you establish a milestone, you get paid. And this notion that I need to pay 30, 40% up front is silly. You should try to do everything you can to avoid it. If it is really truly to buy material, I strongly encourage you to figure out a way that you buy the material, because not only illegally you should do that because you actually have ownership of the material if you make payment. If you give a deposit to a contractor, doesn't necessarily mean that you legally own that material. So let's say, for example, you give $10,000 to a carpenter, he gives you a load of lumber. And for whatever reason, the contractor, that carpenter decides he doesn't want to work for you. That material that's on your job site that legally is not your material. It is the carpenter's, because he's the one who brought the material on site. And then you got to go through a whole bunch of legal wrangling to prove that, hey, I gave this guy deposit money, versus if you have an invoice that's from the lumberyard that delivered the material, you have legal right. You can immediately go to the police and say, hey, I bought 10 sheets of plywood and they're not here anymore. And that guy took them. And you got a receipt, you got something. But if you have just a contract, say I gave $10,000 to this guy to mobilize it for material, cops, police are not going to get involved in that. They're going to say that's a civil matter. Go to court and go sue each other. Right. So this is one of the things that I teach people that, and to protect yourself. There's so many things that you need to do. And one of those is the neighbor in the car, the overspray, paint spray. I insert clauses that allow me legally to be able to withhold money from the payments that I'm supposed to make to a tradesperson or contractor. Because if you just unilaterally decide you're going to withhold payment, they have the right to be able to place a lien on your property because you didn't give them payment.
Right, of course. Yeah, and
But
I
if you
have
have
heard
a
of
clause in
that
that-
all the time too. Yeah, they place a lien. And
Yeah.
now
So
you
if
have
you've
to
got a
jump the
clause in
ropes.
your contract that says, hey, if you've caused damage and you're responsible for it, I'm well within my right to be able to withhold that money. Those are the types of things you need to put in. There's lots of stuff like that unfortunately, these HGTV TV shows and the DIY TV shows, it's all, 30 minutes of beautiful stuff. They got to go there, being a banga, the house miraculously overnight. Everybody's happy. Everything's beautiful, but it isn't the case.
Right. No, I agree. No, this was great. So let's take a quick break. And after the break, we will go through the same questions I ask every guest.
You're listening to the Wealth Matters Podcast.
The Wealth Matters Podcast.
For more info about what we do, check us out at wealthmatters.com. It's wealth, WEALTH, matters, MATRS.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. Van gave pretty good idea. Actually, I was listening and I was thinking about my own projects at the same time as well. So thank you, Van. Are you ready for fire round?
Yes. Hit me with your best shot.
Let's go. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after this pandemic is over?
No, I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing over the last 30 years. I think depending on how things play out, nobody's got a crystal ball, but I think when you have such certain extremes in one direction, usually they result in extremes in the other direction. So stay tuned. It's going to be interesting times. I'm a positive person. I think we're going to have some tremendous opportunities moving forward over the next 6 to 18 months.
That's awesome. Favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is a tremendous book. And it's really some wonderful stuff, how positive affirmation and positive thinking can influence your life. And I strongly encourage people to really read it because every once in a while rereading it because there's a lot of great stuff in it.
Yeah, it's like a Bible, no doubt. Any tool or website you recommend or you use in your business?
One of the things that I strongly encourage people is to become active in their local real estate investment associations, their REIs, their meetup groups, places like that, because they're fountains of information. You got some really good, successful people that are in these groups that you should be able to network and reach out to. They can help you along in the process. So that's a tool that I recommend that people use if they really want to get successful. You want to be a successful real estate investor.
Any advice for beginner investors?
Would strongly encourage that nothing beats this old saying that says money's made on the buy. And oftentimes new real estate investors' natural inclination is to run over to the MLS or Zillow and try to find the deals. And unfortunately, there's millions of other people that are finding their deals. I strongly encourage people to think differently, to actually go out there in the marketplace and zero in and start knocking on doors, networking with people that are in the know and being able to find off-market deals. That's the source. That's how successful people become even more successful, is by doing things differently than from others. It's not easy, but those are the difficult things that people need to do in order to become successful. You got to think differently.
I agree. How do you give back?
I love what I do right now in that there are new real estate investors that come to me and I help guide them through the process of planning and managing their own renovations. And I find it, I'm passionate about it. And I truly love seeing people succeed. And it uplifts me. It really fills my soul. I'm not all that thrilled anymore about making more money because I've got lots of it. I just want to give back. And I really do enjoy watching people grow and become something successful.
It's awesome. How can my listeners reach out to you?
I've got a website that I put together, vansturgeon.com, where there is full of information. There's also a free training that I'm offering to folks, guides them through the things that we talked about in planning and managing renovation. And also there's a free renovation calculator that my team and I put together. It took us several months, where it's pretty intricate, where you enter the square footage of the place, how many stories, and you click off the things that you want to renovate in the property. And it spits out a good budgetary number that you can use. It's an excellent tool for that new real estate investor who's got that investment property, is trying to understand how much it's going to cost. And so I encourage you to download it and take the free training that's over there. And I've got other information and resources on my website. So I encourage people, www.vansturgeon.com.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all the golden nuggets.
Not a problem. I really do appreciate the time. I love what I do. So anytime you want me back to talk about renovations and how to plan and manage, I'm more than welcome to come back.
Will do. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Matters podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week and happy investing!